We're on Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. Hazaydik v'niskar me'acha sheyatzas miyadai. So you threw something b'shaygig, as Rashi here says on Shabbos, after it left your hands and before it landed and before the malacha was completed, you reminded yourself that it's Shabbos. And then what happened is, this is the simple pshat of the Mishnah. We'll see the Gemara will discuss this, but the simple pshat of the Mishnah is, and then in addition to the fact that you reminded yourself, what happened is kol ta'acher. Somebody else jumped out of his position, ran towards the item that you threw, and he caught it in his hands. So which basically means then that the place that you threw it, where it was destined to land, it didn't land there. Somebody else caught it out of the position where it was going to land. So now you have the issue of shnaim shasu. Two people participated in this malacha. You threw it into one place, and someone else came and caught it earlier on, caught it in another place. Or kolta kelev, or a dog caught it in its mouth. Now, a dog catching it in its mouth, the issue, as Rashi here says, is not only the fact that it didn't land in the position that you intended, even if it did, even if the dog was right there from the beginning when you threw it, but his mouth is not a mokim dalet. It doesn't have the minimum requirement for the space for it to land. It has to be 4 by 4 tefachim. We'll see soon in the Gemara. The Gemara will explain. We'll see. Or he threw it, and after he reminded himself, what happened also is it went into a fire and it got burnt. So it never really landed, because as it landed, it got burnt. That's the beginning. So potter. So the Mishnah says in all of these cases, he'll be potter. Zara class is chabura. Similar halacha, a person throws something. Here we're not talking about the malacha of a hitzah or the malacha of a person that's carrying 4 amos in the Rishus Harabim. He throws something pasha to hurt somebody, to make a chabura, to black and blue mark. So bein ba'adam, whether he threw it at a person, bein b'behema, whether he threw it at a behema. So making a chabura in itself is a malacha, as we'll see later on in the Gemara. So, but he reminded himself, before it actually hit this person, he reminded himself that it's an Isser, that it's Shabbos. V'niskar at shaloi nasis chabura, he reminded himself before that. Potter, he's going to be potter. Now, the Mishnah explains the pshat over here and why he would be potter if he reminded himself before the malacha was done. Zeh klal. Here's the klal regarding a korban chatos. Kol chayave chatois. Anytime a person is chayav a chatos, and that's true here l'chayre by Shabbos and in other cases as well. Einon chayavais. You're not going to be chayav on a korban chatos at sheteheit chilason v'seifon shgaga. If the beginning of the malacha and the conclusion of the malacha, you were a shegig throughout the entire time. Tchilasan shkaga, v'seifan zadain. If in the beginning, when you began the malacha, you were a shegig, but before the malacha is completed, you're amazed. You reminded yourself, and now you're amazed. Tchilasan zadain. Or in the beginning, you were amazed, but v'seifan shkaga, somehow you forgot afterwards, and now you're a shegig, pturin. You'll be potter. You have to be a shegig throughout the action of the malacha, beginning till the end. If the person is the shegig throughout the Maisa Aveda, then you chayav a korban chatas. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to ask an obvious question that it seems like the Seifa of the Mishnah is contradicting the Reisha of the Mishnah. Why is that? So let me just explain outside before we learn inside. In the Seifa of the Mishnah, it's telling you that to be chayav a korban chatas, you have to be a shegig throughout, from the beginning till the end. So if so, in the Reish of the Mishnah, the very first case where it says that he threw it and he remembered, why does the Mishnah say that the only reason you potter is because someone else came and completed the malacha? Or the dog caught it in its mouth and therefore wasn't a full malacha. Let's say it was a full malacha. Let's say it landed exactly where you intended it to land. Still, you should be potter because you were niskar. You remembered. And we're saying that as long as you remember the middle, it's not a full shegig. Not the entire malacha is a shegig. So how does why isn't it making it so complicated in the Reisha of the Mishnah? Frag the Gemara. Going to the Reisha of the Mishnah. Ha nacha. If he threw it and he remembered it's Shabbos and it did land in the place where he intended it to land, chayiv. So then he would be chayiv for it. The only reason he's potter is because it didn't land and someone else helped you with the malacha. V'haloi niskar. But he remembered that it was Shabbos, so in the middle of the malacha he's not a shegig anymore. With Tananan in the Seifa of the Mishnah it says, Kol chayav chatois ein chayavim at shetehet chilasan v'seifan shgaga. You only chayav a chatas if the beginning and the end was a shegig. So what's the pshat in the Reish of the Mishnah? And for the Gemara, so there'll be a few pshatim here in the Gemara. Amar Rav, so Rav explains, Amar Rav Kahana, that is, sorry, Rav Kahana explained, Seifa, in the Seifa when it says that you have to be both in the beginning and the end, the Sheigig, you know when that's talking about? Asa lelachta umisna. It's talking about a case where you have a clamp and you have a rope that's connected to this clamp, and you threw the clamp and you're still holding the rope in your hand, so you never let go of it fully. So because you never let go of it fully, so therefore if you're not a sheigig until the end, over there I say that you're going to be potter, because you're still holding on to it. In a case where you threw it out of your hands and you let go of it, and you were a sheigig at that point, it doesn't matter anymore if you reminded yourself later, if you became amazed later, because you let go of it. The klal in the seif of the mission that you have to be a sheigig from the beginning till the end is because you're still holding on to it. Fragt the Gemara, really? That's the pshat? Lechte umisna, a case where there's a clamp and he's still holding on to the rope in his hands. He's still holding on to this. There is no action of malacha b'chlal. Meinaf gemina what his kavana is. You know, it's b'chlal not a malacha. If you throw something and you're still holding on to it, and even if it does land, even if it ends up landing, you should be potter, because you're still holding on to one part of it in your hands. You only chayiv when you throw something and you let go of it completely.
So if you're making a klal, the Mishnah is making a statement, this is a klal.
Correct. So making a kimta. But even if timtzalaima, you know, the Gemara sometimes makes a kimtis, but the Gemara says it's just not true l'chayra. It's not b'chlal, not a malacha. So the Gemara says a different pshat. Kagoin, the pshat in the seif of the Mishnah is when it says this klal, that you only chayev chatos if you're the beginning and the end of sheigig, kagoin sheniskaven lasas chabura. The seif of the Mishnah is only referring to the case where you intended to make a chabura. Once you threw it and you intended to make a chabura, so then you have to be a sheigig until the end where it landed and you actually made the chabura. That's over there. But in the first case of the Mishnah, where it says that you threw it over there, even if you reminded yourself, you'll still be chayev. So there's a difference if you're doing the malacha of hitzah or if you're doing the malacha of making a chabura. Okay, but the Gemara asks right away, that can't be pshat in the Mishnah. Ha nami tanina. This case where a person threw it and he intended to make a chabura, that it says right before that, hazoyrik lases chabura, bein ba'adam bein b'behema v'niskar at shaloi nases chabura potter. Didn't it say that case right before this in the Mishnah? So if it says that explicitly, why would we say that the klal in the end of the Mishnah is only talking about that case that it already spelled out before? Elamar Rava, so Rava says, Rava gives a different shot. The shot over here is b'maver. The seif of the Mishnah where it says that you have to be both in the beginning and in the end of the malacha sheigig throughout the entire time. It's not talking about a person that threw the item. It's talking about a person that was walking with the item from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim, or he was walking with it in the Rishus HaRabim 4 Amos. He's walking with it. So the point is, if you're walking with it and you're holding it in your hands, at any moment you can stop the malacha. It's still in your hands. So over there we say that you have to be a sheigig until the end. If at a certain point in the middle you remembered and you continued going, even though you could have stopped, so over here, I divide the malacha. One half was a sheigig, and one half was a mezit, so you don't bring a carbon chatas. So over there I say that you're going to be potter. What's the ratio of the Mishnah talking about? Hazayrik. You threw it. The moment it left your hand, you can't take it back anymore. So even though you became a mezit in the middle, but it's too late, how are you taking it back? The action of the malacha is totally done. It's out of your hands, and therefore if you remember it afterwards, it doesn't matter. So the Gemara doesn't like this pshat either. Frag the Gemara, but v'hazeh haklal diktani, the zeh haklal, where it says that you have to be a sheigig throughout. What does this say? What is it going on? Diktani azrika katani. It's saying this in the Mishnah where it said before the case of zaydik. So it seems to be going in the case of zaydik, not a case where the person is holding it in his hands. Elamar Rava. So Rava says the pshat over here in the Mishnah is as follows: Tarti katani. The Mishnah, you have to read the Reisha of the Mishnah differently. The Reisha of the Mishnah has to be divided. It's saying two different things. First thing it's saying is, Hazayrik v'niska ma'achar sheyatzas miyada. You threw something and you reminded yourself it's Shabbos after it left from your hands. That's one case, full stop. Inami, then there's another case. Loi niskar, even if you did not remember it's Shabbos, but v'kol ta'acher. Somebody else ran and caught it. Or a third case, oy kolta kelev, or a dog caught it, oy shenisrafa, or you threw and it landed in a place where it got burned. Potter, you'll be potter. So Enochanami, the Reisha of the Mishnah was saying that you would be potter even if it did end up landing where you intended it to land, if you remembered it's Shabbos. You don't read the Mishnah together, it's a separate case. So that it fits exactly with what it said in the Seif of the Mishnah. Rav Ashi says yet another pshat in the Mishnah here.
Is the second reading all the kelev and everything also in the klal of Tlasnat Seifim?
No, it's a separate thing. Either you reminded yourself, then you potter, or another case, kulta, person kulta, or the kelev kulta, or nisrafa, it's different cases. Rav Ashi says chasuri mechsera. There's missing here in the Mishnah v'hachi gatani, and this is how you have to learn pshat in the Mishnah. So as Taisus over here says, the pshat that Rav Ashi is about to say doesn't mamish mean that there's a words missing in the Mishnah. A lot of times when the Gemara says chsuri mechsera, it literally means that there's pashut words missing in the Mishnah. But here Rav Ashi is saying there's the explanation of the Mishnah, you have to add the following explanation. Hachi ketani, this is what the Mishnah is saying. Hazayrik v'niska me'acha sheyatzasay miyadai. He threw it and he remembered after it came out of his hands. And you do read it together, not like Rava. You read it together. Kolta acher, and then besides that, somebody else came and caught it. Or kolta kelev, or it fell into the mouth of a dog. Or shenisrafa, or it got burnt. Potter. Only then will you be potter if the second thing happened. It's not enough the fact that you reminded yourself. And then, so what do we understand from this part of the Mishnah? Ha nacha. If it would have landed where you intended it to land, chayiv, you would be chayiv, even though you reminded yourself. But here, the pshat of the Mishnah is as follows. Bamed dvarim amurim. The reisha of the Mishnah that's saying that even if you reminded yourself, you would be chayiv if it landed where you intended it to land, shechaza v'shachach. This guy's mind is playing around with him. He forgot again. He forgot again that it's Shabbos. So when he began the malacha, and when he completed the malacha, he had the shegig. He didn't know it's Shabbos. In between, he had this memory. Aval loy chazav v'shachach potter. If he did not forget again at the completion of the malacha, he would be potter. And here comes the seif of the Mishnah: shekol chayav v'chatois. Any person that's chayav v'chatos einan chayavin at shetehei tchilason v'seifon shgaga. The critical parts of the malacha is the start and the finish, the beginning and the end. If then you're a shegig, you're chayiv. You don't have to have a shegig throughout. According to Rav Ashi, if even in the middle you remembered, as long as you forgot again at the end and the malacha was completed b'shaygig, you're also going to be chayiv. So it's an additional chiddush that Rav Ashi sees over here in the Mishnah.
So for klal, it's the same.
like Rava's pshat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a new. He's adding a new halacha. He's not disagreeing to Rava's halacha, but he's just adding another halacha. He's adding another halacha. Okay. Zok the Gemara zeh klal. So the klal that it said in the end of the Mishnah, kol chayav v'chatois chulu, that you have to be a shegig in the beginning and in the end. So here the Gemara brings an interesting machlokes. Itma, learn the machlokes. So a person is being mavir. He's walking under the Rishus Rabbim, or maybe throwing under the Rishus Rabbim. We'll see in a moment, and which is 4 amas, right? So what happens if as follows? Itma, we learned the following machlekes. Shtei amas b'shegig. The first 2 amas, he was a shegig. Then shtei amas b'mezid. The next 2 amas, he was a mezid. And then shtei amas, the other 2 amas, he was again a shegig. What's going to be the halach in this case? So he actually did more than the minimum requirement of the malacha, which is 4 amas. He went 6 amas. 6 amas, more. So Rabba Omar Potter. Rabba says in such a case it'd be Potter. And Rava Omar Chayev. And Rava says that in such a case he would be Chayev. So the Gemara.
Same thing that Rav Ashi was talking about.
Let's see. So the Gemara, it's a little bit different. Let's see. The Gemara will explain. Rabba Omar Potter. Rabba says in such a case he would be Potter. He reminded himself in the middle. Rabbi Gamliel. Even according to Rabbi Gamliel, the Omar. What did Rabbi Gamliel say? This is going to come in another few blot. We're going to learn this soon. The shit of Rabbi Gamliel. All right, Rabbi Gamliel says the Omar ein yidiyah l'chatzi shir. There's no relevance to a knowledge that you have for a half a shir, which means we know that a person that repeats the same malacha twice, so you chayiv once if it wasn't the same lapse of unawareness. It was one big shaygig. If you repeat the same thing twice, you chayiv once. What's if you did only a half a malacha? and then you remembered, and then you continued and you did the other half of the malacha. Does that divide it into two? So Rabbi Gamliel says, no, it doesn't. If you did one half and you had a memory, and then you continued and you did the other half, and you were a shegeg again, like basically like Rav Ashi was talking about, we connect the two parts and we say that you're chayev for this. Because the yediyah in middle for a half a shear is not significant. If you did a full malacha, and then you remembered, and then you did another full malacha, so then that yediyah in between separates them. But a yediyah for a half a malacha,
But Leo would say you're only chayav for 2, 4, and 2. You have to have the forgetfulness has to be for a full shear.
Correct. Yeah. That's what separates the malachas. Ein yediyah lechatzi shear. The yediyah that you have in the middle of a malacha for a half a shear is not significant. So l'chayra over here, we're talking about a person that also remembered in the middle. So Rabbi would say it's not the same thing. Hasam, when Rabbi Gamliel said this, who the chika gamar, when he completes the malacha, chika gamar shiura, when he completes the other half of the malacha, b'sheigik kagamar, he's doing it b'sheigik. The example that Rashi gives is a simple example of the malacha of writing. What's the shear of the malacha of writing? 2 letters. You wrote one letter, and then you had an awareness, and then you forgot again, and you wrote the next letter. He did both of them b'shegig. He wrote the first letter b'shegig and the second letter b'shegig. The middle, he had a yediyah. So in such a case, Rabbi Gamliel says the yediyah in the middle does not separate it, and it's one malacha. That's there. But over here, aval hacha, in this case, when this person carried it 6 amas, the b'mezid, the second 2 amas, which is the completion of his malacha, was done b'mezid. Even though he continued going, and he did another 2 amas afterwards, which is now a total of 6 amas, but the next 2 amas is not needed or not part of the malacha anymore.
Which 2? The second 2?
The second 2 was done b'mezid. The last 2 was done b'shegig. The second 2 is the completion of the malacha. And then he was amazed, because now he has the length of 4 amas. The last 2 is already not negated to the malacha. You don't need the other 2 anymore. So since he completed the malacha b'mezid loy, so therefore he wouldn't be chayiv. So even though the yediyah came in the middle of the malacha, but over here he actually completed the malacha b'mezid. So therefore he'd be potter. Ubemai, now the Gemara explains this opinion of Rabbi. What are we talking about? If we're talking about that he threw it and it landed 6 amas away, shaygigu. He is a shaygig at the completion of the malacha, even though the malacha, Rashi explains, even though the malacha is extending further than the minimum amount of 4 amas you need, but when you throw it, it's out of your hands, you can't stop it. So therefore, the hanacha, the completion of the malacha, is only happening at 6 amas. So when you throw it, 6 amas is the completion of the malacha. That's where it's landing. So that's not what Rabbi was talking about. Ela b'maver. Rabbi was talking about when you're walking with it. And you could have stopped after 4 amas, and at that point you were amazed, and you continue going another 2 amas. So therefore, when you completed the malacha, which was at the 4th amma, 4 amas, over there you were amazed. So therefore you potter the carbon chatos. That's what Rabbi says. Now we go to the other Rava. That's how you have to be guided here. Rava Omar Chayev, and Rava says Yechayev. Why Yechayev? So the Gemara explains. Rava says Yechayev, even according to the Rabbanon that say that an awareness in the middle of the malacha interrupts the malacha, but not here. Hasam who dibiyadai, over there it interrupts the malacha because he has the choice whether to continue the malacha or not to continue the malacha. Like the example I mentioned, Rashi says he wrote 1 letter and then he writes another letter. So he's doing 2 parts of the action of the malacha, and when he does it, he's a shaygig. So over there he's going to be chayiv. But aval hacha the ein biyadai, over here, when Rav said that he would be chayev, we're talking about a case that it was not in his hands to stop the malacha anymore. And the Gemara right away explains, when is that it's not in his hands to stop the malacha? Ubemai, ibemavir. If Rav is saying this when he's actually walking with it, he could stop it. After 4 amas, he could stop, or after 2 amas, at any point, he could stop. Hare biyada, it's in his hands. Ela bezaydek. Rava only said that he would be chayiv as if when he threw it and it's out of his hands, so then he can't stop it anymore. And where is it going to land? It's going to land after 6 amas, and because he can't stop it anymore, so therefore the fact that he had a yediyah in between does not interrupt the malacha.
They agree with each other.
So Rashi says that according to the maskana, like Rashi says, v'loy pligi. Rav and Rabba really are not arguing b'chlal. One was talking about, Rabba was talking about when he was walking with it, and Rava was talking about when he threw it. So it's not a machlokes. Yeah. Sagt the Gemara weiter another halacha. Now we come back to the case of the Mishnah where it landed in the mouth of the dog or it landed into a fire. So Amar Rabbe said, or others are good, it's Amar Ravem, Zorak v'nocha b'fiyah kelev, you threw it and it landed in the mouth of the dog, oy b'fiyah kifshan, or in a fire, chayiv. You are chayiv. Frek the Gemara, how could have Rava said this? Now we clearly learned in the Mishnah, kolta acher, that if somebody else caught this thing, they caught the item you threw, I kolta kelev, or it landed in the mouth of the dog, I shenisr for it got burnt, potter. So it clearly says in the Mishnah, you potter. Answers the Gemara, Hasam Deloy Mechaven. In our Mishnah, the reason why you potter is because you did not intend for it to land in that place. So therefore, if it ends up getting burnt, so it didn't have a proper hanocha, got burnt. You didn't intend it to get burnt, and there was never a hanocha. You didn't intend it to go into the mouth of the dog, and it ends up going there. So it's not a chosh of a place for a hanocha. It's not a dalet al dalet. When Rava says that it lands there, Yechayiv, you specifically aimed it into the fire. You aimed it into the mouth of the dog, and therefore you'd be Chayiv. And this goes back, Taka, to what you mentioned before, to the cloud that we learned before in the first Pedic. If you intended to land in a certain place, the very fact that you intended to land there gives it a chshivas of dalet al dalet, as if it has the right space for it to land there. We see this also from what we learned in the Mishnah. And here there's an interesting case. It says in the Braisa, Yesh oichel achila achas. There's a person that could be eating one piece of food, but v'chayiv aleh dalet chatois. And he's chayiv to bring 4 times the carbon chatos and ve'osham. And he's also chayiv to bring a carbon osham. What would be that case? Ve'osham echad. Hatomei she'ochal chaylev, a person that's tomei. So that's one issue, that he's tomei and he's going to be eating kachim, as we'll say in a moment. But he ate not stam kachim, he ate chaylev, the fats of the carbon, and v'hu noisar mina mukdashim, and it's the leftovers of a carbon that's past the prescribed time to eat it from kachim. So you chayiv, and was b'yayim kippurim. What?
This guy's a complete faklan.
B'yayim kippurim, and this was done on yayim kippurim. Okay, so you chayiv for eating the chaylev, you chayiv for eating the noisar, you chayiv for eating a Yom Kippur, and you also chayiv for him being tomei for the tumah. You chayiv, I believe the tumah is the one that you chayiv a carbon osham for. Okay, or actually, sorry, for the kachim you chayiv the osham. Asham me'ilois, for the kachim you chayiv to bring the fact that he ate the kachim, it's an osham. So it's 4 chatois and 1 carbon osham. Rab Meir says there could even be another carbon here. Af Im Hoisa Shabbos, if this happened on Shabbos, and while he's eating this, he walks out with it in his mouth. It's inside his mouth, and he swallows it when he walks into the Rishus HaRabim. So he's doing an Akira, he lifted it up in the Rishus HaYachid, and it lands in his stomach. When he walks out into the Rishus HaRabim, he'll be chayiv another malacha. For the malacha of Shabbos, he'll be chayiv another carbon. Taisvis over here explains why Dafka the Gemara says Shabbos and not Yom Kippur. There's a malacha of Yom Kippur as well. Rab Meir holds not. Okay, Rab Meir holds Dafka Shabbos. Amrullah, so that the Tanakam is said to Rab Meir, okay, it's true, you'd be chayiv another time if it was Shabbos and he carried it out. But Einim and Hashem, it's not the same action. He's not chayiv for the same thing. We were bringing examples for a person that just for the eating is chayiv all these things. You're bringing something which is not really connected to the eating. Over here, it's about the carrying. Even though, you see, according to Rab Meir, how is this person chayiv? When he swallows. The moment you swallow, that's the hanocha of the food. That's the completion of the carrying. So therefore, Rab Meir considered it to be part of the act of the eating. The eating itself creates the hanocha. But the Tanakama says no. But over here, he's not chayiv for the eating, he's chayiv for the hoitzah, for the act of it landing in his stomach when he swallowed it. So therefore, it's not part of this example where you chayiv for the achila itself. But now the Gemara asks the question, Va'amai, according to Rab Meir, why would he be chayiv? Ho'ein derech hoitzah bekach. It's not the derech to be mitzi something, to carry something out in your mouth. We had this before in the Gemara, carrying in your mouth is not the derech of hoitzah. Ella, the answer is, kivin the kamechavin, because the person is having this intention, he's intending to carry it out this way, he's eating it and he wants to carry it out this way, so that makes this way choshev, it makes the space in his mouth choshev to carry this way. Hanami, the same thing is also true regarding throwing something and it landing in a space that's not 4x4. It doesn't have the or even it getting burnt when it lands. Kivin de kamachavin, since he has that kavana for it to land there, machshavtoi mishavile mokim. His machshavim makes it a chosh of a place, and he's chayav for the malacha. Hadron Allah chazayrik.
What's talking about Allah was walking out of the house with food in your mouth on Shabbos?
You chayav.
Yeah.
Because it's the derech to carry it out if it's in your mouth. If you take an item that it's not the derech to keep in your mouth, you put a coin in your mouth and you carry it out that way, you're potter. But if it's food and you're intending to eat it that way, so that's choshev for you, and then you'll be chayav. Yeah. So chewing gum, for example. Zok the Mishnah. Begin a new Peirik. Habayna, we go to a new malacha, the malacha of Bayna. A person that's building on Shabbos, which is one of the Lama Tes malachas, if you work your way backwards actually from the malachas that here Hitzah, which is the last of the malachas, the one right before that is Makeh B'Patish, and then comes before that Bayna. So the Gemara here really wants to discuss Makeh B'Patish. This is what the Taisus Yom Tov says. The Mishnah wants to discuss Makeh B'Patish, which is the one right before Hitzah, but Makeh B'Patish is the final blow. You can only talk about Makeh B'Patish if you start with Bayna. So therefore we go to Bayna. So habayna kama yivna v'yehei chayiv. When a person builds something, what is the minimum amount required that you should be chayiv? Habayna kol shuhu. You build just anything, any small tiny thing. As the Gemara will give different examples for this. Hamesatis, a person that's chiseling a stone to prepare it to be a brick in a building, or he's maybe designing it to be prepared to be used. Or v'hamake b'patish u'b'matzid. Here's the malacha of Makeh B'Patish, where it's the final blow with a hammer or with a sledgehammer. The way Rashi here describes Makeh B'Patish is when you have a rock that's in a mountain and you want to separate the rock and get it out of the mountain, so you're banging, and then there's that final blow when it finally separates and comes out. So that's like the completion of the malacha where it separates it. HaKedeach, or a person that's drilling a hole, also part of Baina, Kol Shuhu, even if it's a tiny small hole, you're going to be chayev. Zeh klal kala isim malacha. Any malacha that you do on Shabbos, you're building anything. Umalachto miskayemes b'Shabbos, and the malacha will endure. It will remain there. It's something that you're doing that it's a kayach to remain there on its own. Chayev, you're chayev for that. If it's something that can't last, it's a kind of malacha that won't last, you're not chayev for it. Rab Shimon Gamliel says, "Af hamakeh bekornis ala sadin b'shas malacha." A person that's banging, you're trying to bang a nail in. Sometimes when you bang the nail in, you don't hit the nail, you hit the surface that you're banging. You're not banging the nail itself. You're also chayiv. Mipnei shuhu kimisakin malacha. This is also a tikkun. This is also part of the fixing of what you're doing, building on Shabbos. And the Gemara will explain this as we'll see when we get there. Okay, so the Gemara starts off with the kol shuhu. What's the example of a person building that he would be chayiv even if he build mamish, a tiny drop? What is that? Kol shuhu, if it's just a small tiny thing, lamai chazia, what is that fit for? You're building it for what purpose? As we know by the malach of Hitzah, if you're mitzi something and it has no use, so then you're not chayiv. So the same should apply by building. If it has zero use, so then you shouldn't be chayiv. So what is the kol shuhu that it has use for? Rabbi Yirmiyah says, shekein oni, chayfer, guma, a poor person could dig a tiny little hole, latzniya ba prutaisav. He has a few coins that he owns and he wants to hide his coins there, so therefore it's a tiny little thing that he built, that he dug, and he's chayiv for that. It's useful for him.
Chayfer is part of Baina?
Yeah. Chayfer, outdoors. Outdoors, it's part of Baina, yeah. The chasa gabi mishkan. Now the Gemara says we find this similar in the Mishkan. Taisus over here explains, in other words, the Gemara Bavanas, you might still think, even though it has some kind of a use to it, but it's so not choshev, it's so not significant, so maybe it shouldn't be a malacha. But we find that this was something that was done and was significant, that was useful even in the Mishkan. Shekain Taifre Yiriyais, the people that were sowing, the Yiriyais of the Mishkan, Chayfrin Guma, La'atzniya Ba Machteyan. They dug little pits to hide over there their needles that they were using for their work. Abai disagrees. Abai says no, they would not do that in the Mishkan. Even the Mishtechi, if you hide your little needles inside the ground, which could be moist, it gets rusty. Lo yavdi hachi. They did not do so in the Mishkan. Ella rather, what's the pshat in Baina kol shuhu in the Mishkan? Something else. Not exactly such a kol shuhu, but shekain ani oise pitpute kira. And ani will create this little stand for a little stovetop, kira ketana, small stovetop. lishbeis aleh kedera katana, to place in it a small pot to heat up water, let's say. So that's a little thing that he builds, a little stand that he builds to create this little makeshift oven or makeshift stovetop to cook for himself. And the chvasa gabi mishkan is similar by the Mishkan as well. Mevashle, samonim, litzbaya yiriyas, when they were cooking the herbs that they needed for the dye, for the yiriyas to color it, shechasra melachtan, if they had dye and they ran out, there was a little bit that they had to cook more. So what did they do? So they didn't cook up a massive pot again. Oisin pitpute kire ketana, they would make a little stand and cook a little pot. Lishbis aleh yairi ketana, with a little pot to cook. So therefore this was done in the Mishkan as well. Rav Yaakov argues and also says, no, this was not done in the Mishkan. Ein aniyas b'makom ashiris. There's no aniyas, poverty, in the place of richness. In the Mishkan, they lechatchila made it breit. They lechatchila made enough dye for the yiriyas and for there to be leftovers. They never had a situation where they ran short and they had to then cook again a little bit for the dye. Ella, so therefore he gives a third example. Shekaim balabayis sheyeshle nekev bibirasai, a rich man that has a small hole in the wall of his house and it doesn't look perfectly nice. V'seismasai, so he closes it up. He puts a patch in there to close it up. So even a tiny little hole that you close up is also a malacha. And the chvasa gabi mishkan, and this you find in the Mishkan. Shekaim keresh shenafla beidarna. One of the krashim, that there was a worm that ate a little part of the keresh, matav l'teicha avar v'saismai. They would pour into it some lead to close up even a tiny little hole inside the krashim. So therefore, that's the kol shehu of the building that you chayav for. Amar Shmuel said, Hamitzadeid esa even chayav. A person that takes a brick or a stone and basically places it, he positions it into the ground, sort of puts it a little bit into the ground and positions it right over there. Chayiv, you're chayiv just by positioning it in the ground this way. It says in the Braisa, what happens in a case where you have echad noisin es even, one person is building and he places the rock in its position, ve'echad noisin es tit, the second person comes along and puts the cement to connect it there, ha'noisin es tit chayiv. Only the person that put the cement is chayiv. So what do you see from this? Just positioning the rock over there in the space is not chayiv. So the Gemara says, why don't you read on what it says over there in that Braisa? What does it say in the Seif of the Braisa? Rabbi Yosi says, over there in the Braisa it says that if you have rows of bricks, you have rows of rocks or rows of bricks, and you put another row on top of that row, you just place it on top, you are chayiv. So Rabbi Yosi says, without any cement whatsoever, just placing another brick on top, you are chayiv. So the question of the Gemara is, what's going on? Do you have to have dafka cement to be chayiv? Or even just placing a brick on top of another brick, which is even less than positioning it in the ground. Positioning in the ground, at least it's firm there, a little bit firm in the ground. Placing one brick on top of another brick, here Rabbi Yosi says even then you're chayiv. What's the pshat in this? Ella, says the Gemara, when it comes to building rows of bricks, tlasa binyane have. There are three aspects over here. There are three levels over here in this building. There's the tata, the lowest row, mitzia, the middle row, v'ila, and the top row. Tata, the lowest row, boi tzedudi v'afra. In order to be chayiv, as long as you position it and you put it into the ground a little bit, for that you would be chayiv, without any cement whatsoever. And that's what Shmuel was speaking about. Mitzia, when you're on the second row, so over here, boy namitina. The only way you'd be chayiv is if you connect these two bricks to each other, only if you added some cement. And that was what the Braisa before was talking about. Then Eloi, then the top row of the bricks, bahanocha balma. Once you come to the top row, so now you're already creating a shtickle structure. So over there, even just placing down the brick, you'd be chayiv without anything else. The next case is said in the Mishnah of Ahamasates, a person that is chiseling the rocks in order to prepare them to be for construction.
Sorry, the top row also you don't need anything else. Once you place your top row, you're not putting anything on top of that. The tit is already there.
If there's tit from, okay, but if you place on the top, even if there's no tit connecting the top to the middle, you still would be chayiv. Because sof it creates that height and it's already a binyan just by the fact that it's a top row. Chayra. Ha-mesates. Zok the Gemara, mesates mishumai mechayev. So the person that's chiseling these rocks, what is he chayev for? Which malacha? Rav Amar mishum baina. Rav says he's building, he's preparing it for the construction, and that's part of the process of construction, and therefore Yechayev for baina. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says mishum makeh bepatish. You're taking this rock that's not fully finished to be used, and you're finishing it off, you're chiseling it and forming it. That's makeh bepatish. That's the final blow. Ha'isen nekev belul, person that makes a hole in a chicken coop. Right, so the chickens are inside, and there's fumes inside, and it's hot inside, and you have to make some hole to let out some of the fumes, and you make a hole in the chicken coop. Shaltana gailim, Rav, again, there's an argument here. Rav says mishum baina, so you make that hole, so you're building it, you're preparing it that it should be properly used for these chickens. Yechayev. Shmuel Amar mishum makeh bepatish. No, in that case you only chayev for finishing it off because of makeh bepatish, not for building. A third case, ayol shufte bekupina demara. You have a shovel which has. It is shaykh to be chayev for both. Good question. Some Mefarshim say that when Rav says Yechayev mishum baina, he means to say that Yechayev for both, for baina and makeh bepatish. Shmuel came and argued and said only makeh bepatish and not baina. That's the pshat of the Gemara. Very good. So the third case is ayol shuftu bekupina demara. A person has the handle and the actual blade of the shovel itself, and you want to, or the plate of the shovel itself, and you want to connect the handle to the shovel itself. So there's this hole where you place a peg inside to connect the two together. So Rav Omar, if you connected the two together with that peg, Rav says mishum baina, yechayev for baina, or maybe Rav means yechayev for both baina and makeh bepatish. Or Shmuel Amar mishum makeh bepatish, yechayev only for makeh bepatish. So now the Gemara will explain why did we say all three cases. It seems to be repeating the same machlokes, just applying it to three different cases. So the Gemara explains tzricha. We need all these three cases. Diyashmin on kamaisif. We'll just speak about the first case where you're chiseling the rocks. Ba'hika Rav. There Rav is saying that yechayev for baina mishum the derech binyin bekach. That's how you build. You take rocks and that's always the way you build. You have to chisel them out to prepare them for building. But maybe in a case where you're making a hole in the chicken coop, this is not the regular way of building. Maybe here Rav would agree to Shmuel, because as Rashi explains, when you make that hole, you sachakel doing it to release some of the fumes that are inside over there where the birds are inside. But it's not like a regular window that you make that's usually made for air to come in and out. So maybe it's not the regular way of building. So therefore it has to tell you that Rav says that no, even there it's an opening. It's compared to a window in Yechayev. V'yashmin in Baha, if it would say the second case, I would say Baha Kama Rav. In the second case, Rav says Yechayev mishum dedami lebinyan, because it's an opening like a window, and it's compared to making a window in Yechayev. The avdila avira, it is considered to be made for air, not only to let out the fumes, but also to allow air to come in and Yechayev. Putting in that peg to connect these two parts together. That's not the derech of binyan, so maybe here you would be potter. Maybe Rav would agree to Shmuel, and therefore it says that even in this last case, Yechayev. Mitzad binyan, right. V'yashminim baha, and if we would only say the last case, then I would say maybe baha ka'ama Shmuel. Maybe only in the last case Shmuel argued and said they only chayev for makeh bepatish. Aval bahanach tarti, in the previous two cases, Rav. Maybe I would say there it's more like a regular binyan, and there he agrees to Rav that yechayev for binyan. Therefore tzricha, I need all three cases to say that yechayev, that they argued, that Rav and Shmuel argued whether yechayev for baina or makeh bepatish. Just to finish off with one point that Taisus makes over here. Here from this Gemara you see that the Isser of Binyan is also in Kalim, not only in an actual structure of a building. We had already before in the Gemara that you could have Baina in a person, in a human body, where you build updo in a braid of a woman's hair. There's Binyan in a person, there's Binyan in food. We had that by cheese, when you create a block of cheese, Gvina, Megabin. And now over here we see in the Gemara, when you get to this shovel, that there's binyan bekalim. And Taisa says, even though there's a beferish Gemara that there's no binyan bekalim, that's when you have parts of a keli, that you put together parts of a keli. But over here, when you're actually building a keli, when you're taking a keli, you're goimer the keli. It's not just the parts that you're screwing in together, but you're goimer the whole keli. For that you would be chayev. There is binyan bekalim. And Alter Rebbe brings this Shulchan Aruch also. Okay.
According to Rav, that has been in the Kalim.
Right, according to
Shmuel
Rav,
doesn't
correct.
hold
Lav dafke. Shmuel Chayr is arguing for a different reason because he says it's not the derech, it's more the derech of Makkah Bepatish. Yeah.